Hey, how's it going? Right, so we're modeling this again. Well, texturing it largely. Right, first order of business. This transparency isn't working along here. I actually found out what the problem is. Um, it's a sort of a miscompatibility between Sprite and Blender when using a target file. I'm using those because the engine I'm going to be targeting only realistically supports those. It could be made to support other things, but it doesn't yet. There is a workaround. Change my index to RGB color, save, and if I switch to UV edit mode and put it back the way it was so you can actually see what's going on. Almost nearly that. There you go. Yeah, let me just sort this out. Reload. Ah! It's transparent. Ah! So yeah, the issue there is that when Blender imports a palletized texture, it can be a bit picky about how the alpha is stored. Now, the problem with that is that if I save it in RGB color mode and then close and reopen it, this nice organized palette here will all disappear because Sprite won't have saved any information about how the image was supposed to be palletized. So I'm just going to put up with this big black border around here until I'm doing something that specifically requires the transparency to be right. First order of business, however, is the fact that the center of this doesn't line up with this. It kind of breaks the whole lighting model. And I've decided, after at least 10 minutes of deliberation, that what I'm actually going to do to fix this is I am just going to make this train track wider. It's just the simplest way of fixing it. So how much wider does it need to be? Let's try an extra 50%, an extra 30%. So make sure that 3D cursor is an origin, and let's go for 1.3. Let's go for 1.4. That looks more like it. And let's do the same over here. Because it's selected. And then 1.4. And yeah, that now lines up pretty perfectly. Now that has stretched the texture, so I'm going to have to fix that. Oh, I also missed one of the vertices, so I'm going to need to fix that as well. All right, okay. We're not doing super well all around, but we can fix it. We can fix it. I'm also going to have to re-UV this, as this is going to be longer as well. So let's individual, medium point, and we want vertex snap. Aha. How am I going to get these consistently lined up? I don't know, I've just made everything worse. We'll figure it out, we'll get it all tied up eventually. Oh, hang on, I want it back on the 3D cursor. 4. Right, and then let's snap this back to there. And I think the way I did this before was I went for an edge center snap. Yeah. And then in the snap options, I think I went for center. And then medium point. And that should, yeah, there we go. There we go. Let's make sure I've got it on the X and Y only. Okay, that looks much more believable. You know, something has like a light source kind of shining on that. Just gotta do the same for all the others now. So it doesn't, get narrower for no reason. Is that going to upset the composition of the scene at all? Not really, not really. And I think just having that light makes sense. Is just so much more important. Okay. Oh, yeah, we want the origin to be the 3D cursor. Yep. Okay, let's do this one. As always, there's probably a much better way of doing this. You could probably make this a spline. Probably. I've not really done much with the splines in Blender. You could probably do it though. Are those bound together? No, they're not bound together. And this one. And then we've got one more, which is this one. Aha. All right. Now let's start fixing these UVs. So this is now, well, it's an extra 40% wide. So we need to make this roughly, 40% wider. And we need to make room for it. So we need to grab all this stuff and move it this way. This is always like an eyeball affair, you know, it's something there's no science here. Well, actually, we could do it scientifically. How wide is this in pixels? It is 30. So let's do the math here. 30 times 1.4 is, oops, had it in programmer mode, so it would not. It's 42. Now, that's not going to be exactly how wide it should be because, of course, it's not a flat surface we've stretched. I don't know off the top of my head whether that would make it need to go wider or narrower, but it's probably about right if we do that. And then we need to adjust the UVs. Yeah. Oh, some of these have separated. What? Huh? Oh, that's the texture on the side. Okay, right. Let's just grab those. Oh wait, I need to turn the snap the pixels back on. Yeah, I was looking at writing a script for Blender just to automatically apply like the kind of like usual things I have. Because I'm trying to move away from using like blend files because they tend to have good compatibility, but you know, if I ever change my mind about using Blender, I'd be stuck with a bunch of blend files I can't do much with. And also, I'd need to export them whenever I want to in an engine, whereas I like having them as just basic OBJs. You know, you could edit them 20 years ago and you can edit them now and you'll be able to edit them in another 20 years, whereas a blend file, maybe not, who knows. Okay, let's continue this arc. I might end up changing the spacing between them because we've effectively changed the shape of the object they're wrapping around. Yep, I'll do that. And then, oh, actually, maybe not. Maybe it works out. I might put fewer in though, because like it's meant to kind of look like the veins on the leaf, and I think I might have too many. But that would make it, then it would need to divide by 3, and that'd be a problem because not many things do. Ah, nice. Oh, wait. Yeah, of course. Yeah, and it stops from there, not... Yeah, what am I doing? Oops. What am I doing there? And there we go. How does that look in context? Now, one of them needs to wrap around, so let's sort that out next. Let's grab you and run all the way up there. It gives us that starting point, and you can reflect it. There we go. How's that look? Maybe I do leave that many stripes on it. Yeah, that actually looks kind of okay. Yeah, that looks okay. Yeah, let's move the other lights to the center next. So let's grab this, and the median point, and edge center, all axes except Z. Right, where's the edge center? Where is it? There it is. Oh yeah, and I also want to lock it. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Did I move some of these up and down? Because they look like they're at different heights. Why are they at different heights? Okay, I'm going to delete all of them but one. I should probably unwrap it at the same time. That would make sense because then I'd, save myself the effort of duplicating the unwrap. So how are we going to unwrap this? Because this is a pretty crude piece of geometry, right? It's like a Sega Saturn Chaos Emerald. It's got like a mix of tris and quads on top. I'm thinking I maybe just like do a section of it. It's so small, I'll just do the whole thing as a unique unwrap. So mark some seams all the way around the outside. Grab the center, unwrap. And then roughly eyeball our pixel count, roughly. Let's compare it with the floor underneath. That's still too big. I want it to be roughly hexagonal. A bit of distortion is fine. You're going to have some distortion just because it's it's got a raised point in the middle. All right, that looks okay. Is it oriented correctly? I don't think it is. Let's Oh, I've just realized it's not actually aligned along an axis. That's kind of weird. Why did I do that? Or maybe it is, and maybe it's... Oh, it actually is aligned along an axis. It's actually the railway that's not. Okay. We'll deal with that later then. Unwrap the top. Let's put some seams in here just in case I unwrap it again. Right, and I think I'll put the seam along there. And unwrap that. So next step, we need to get this roughly consistent with regards to pixel density. And figure out how we're going to unwrap it. Where we're going to place it on the chart, that is. I'm thinking maybe 2 pixels across for each one of those, because that'll at least give us a bit of room for detail, but anything more than that would be really silly for something so small. Okay, that's currently way too tall. You can see because like these are kind of squashed. So let's shrink it down maybe like 50% in height. Yeah, that's about right. That's good, happy with that. And let's do roughly the same with this. Let's try and give it the same outline actually as the base. Oh, based. And let's just crunch the middle down into a point just so you get like a nice even. Oh, I was gonna say you've got some nice even topology, and that's pretty messed up looking. Let's undo that. Yeah, that looks better, even if it's not quite symmetrical between top and bottom halves. That's fine, we can live with that. Can we maybe move them that way and maybe get a better result? No, I think it actually looks better when it's distorted. That's kind of weird, but it does look better. It does look better, so I'll leave it like that. All right, okay. What's next? I need to fix these. So I think I might just do the one and then copy it along. Now this one was the first one, so I'm going to do it with that. So snap the cursor to that, cursor to selected, and then 3D cursor. Use the scale tool to move it out towards the edge. And that will have moved them very slightly apart from one another, so we're going to use the medium point and then move them back together. Yeah, that's good. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be more perfect than it was. I'm also going to move this actually slightly further away from the center. How's that look? Yeah, because the thing when it was kind of curved backwards from ground level, you wouldn't actually be able to see it. If you can't see it, what's the point? Oh, I should also turn on backface culling. There we go. Very nice. So yeah, I really want to get better with the vegetation. I want to draw some decent vegetation. I've had a bit of a think about where it probably went wrong. And I think the main problem was I just didn't finish it. I think if I had actually drawn it all the way along, it probably would it probably looked half decent. Okay, so let's grab this and let's unwrap it again. So I had like seams all the way around here. I didn't actually make seams, I just, selected the polygons, wanted to unwrap and press the unwrap button. Let's use seams for this. I think it makes sense to put the seam along the top on the basis that you're not going to see that from the ground level. I think that makes sense. Maybe it also makes sense to put them here. I don't know. You'd more conventionally put them along here. Yeah, let's see what happens. How's that unwrap? Well, that's actually come out pretty nice. I'm just going to clear that seam there, and I'm just going to unwrap that entire piece as one. No, that's actually come out pretty nice. I can't really disagree with how that's come out. I do love the one-click unwrap on this. It's so good. Okay, let's try and get the pixel density lined up with this. So we're like, you've got to be like 10 times as big as we should be there. So let's scale it down to, let's say, there. Okay, more like 5 times. And that's still a bit big. Hey, that's looking about right, isn't it? Hell yeah. Let's put you way up there. I might increase the contrast slightly between these two. I reduced the checkerboard contrast for an unrelated reason. I'm just going to increase it so I can see what's going on. There we go. We get a better idea now of how much distortion we have all the way along it. Distortion is kind of inevitable, and it's kind of like not always worth worrying about. Does that look any better? 44 degrees, and then scale it to, what was that? Like 0.4? 0.3? Is that about right? No? 0.2? That's way too big. 0.1? That's about right. And I might make some adjustments to how that's unwrapped because that looks a bit weird and distorty. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. That doesn't look great. Okay, maybe I will go with what it decided. Okay, it looks better on one side than the other. What's that all about? I guess it's just how it's split the triangle. Ah, okay, it split it differently along the two sides. So if I rotate that. Hang on. No, it hasn't. What are you talking about? That looks okay. Especially from the ground level. In fact, that actually looks kind of good from the ground level. Yeah, that'll do. That will do. Now let's try and make it roughly the same pixel density as that. We're going to do something here that's not quite correct. It's going to like cause distortion, but it will probably look better. How's that look? Looks pretty good, doesn't it? Let's scale it down slightly along there. Yeah. Okay, that's looking decent. We've got distortion, but that was going to be inevitable when you kind of do things in this style. Next up, let's fix this one. Rotate it 45. Scale it down to like what, 0.2 was it? And that's still too big. Oops, no, not scale the UVs, not the geometry. Let's get the other half into view and see if we can get these two to line up. It doesn't really matter if it's correct per se, it's more if it's correct when combined with everything else. Ha! All right, we're happy with that. So let's find a nice spot on the unwrap for those. They're taking up less space than they were before. Have I done something wrong? Probably. Okay. Oh, there's this bit on the end. Where's this gone? Ah, that accounts for that. Where am I going to put that? Not that. That. Let's turn it upside down. I'll probably fit it in nicely there. Yeah. Even though it won't actually save us any space because they're square pixels. Yeah, let's not turn it upside down. It won't actually save us any space at all. Okay. That's looking okay. Let's delete all these columns that I cloned last time. Maybe I should be using instancing until I've got a bit further with this. I don't know. Right. How am I going to texture this? Because I probably don't want that to be concrete. That wouldn't make any sense. Yeah. You wouldn't make a structure like that out of concrete. It would crack under the pressure, under like the tensile stress, wouldn't it? You would make it out of some kind of steel or something. What colour would I make that? Let's just go for a boring grey for now. Just a basic grey. We can figure this out later on. It's not critical. It's one of the nice things about using palletized textures. Okay. So now we can have a look at where those actually turn up on the texture map. And yeah, it's just done there. So I think it's that. Is that right? Oh, not quite. It actually goes a bit wider than that. And then extend these up a bit, probably to about there. I could be using the symmetry tool. Always forget to use the symmetry tool. How's that look? Oh, perfect, perfect. We got it bang on. Not that time though. We're off by 1 pixel. Damn it, my combo's been ruined. Okay, now we can fill that in. All right. So we're probably going to have like a bit of like a sun glint on this side. I might also texture a bit of a shadow on this so it looks like there's a, yeah, this is like a cap casting a shadow over the top of it. Let's just do that first of all. Yeah, it's going to be here, isn't it? So it's going to get a little brighter, even though it's in shadow, like, you know, it's still being faced towards the sort of open sky. How's that look? That looks okay. That looks okay. So yeah, let's darken this quite a lot. And then start adding some highlights where they should be. There should be a bit of one on there. And it should probably roll off pretty quickly like that. Oh, I've got almost no difference between those two shades. That's not very good. That's more like it. How does that look? Okay, this kind of highlight needs to kind of stretch up the front of this a bit because it's kind of like pointed. Yeah. A bit longer than that. Let's go for more like that. And then maybe start to darken it towards the bottom. Let's give that a go. That's looking okay. That's looking okay. Doesn't look quite as good as it looked in my head, but that's looking okay. Okay, in fact, you know what I could do? Hang on, you know what I could really do actually? If I send a single line of pixels from this onto the concrete part, just to kind of help out with the smooth the kind of transition between the two. So if I grab that, move it down, and then I add a really, really bright ring. Yeah, like that, that'll do. Ah, that's made it look a bit more like it's actually reflecting light. Okay. And then I guess we can continue up here. Yeah. Maybe we drop it one shade. That looks pretty cool. That looks pretty cool. Okay, let's fix the flatness over here. This should not be flat. I'm also going to drop the brightness of this quite a bit just because it's meant to be just there for sort of like here, unwrap checking. Yes, we want it to get bright again on top, so all the way along there. Ah, yeah. It should, of course, be actually quite bright on top of there because that's kind of like a point. Aha. Oh, we can almost kind of like do some kind of like corrugation or something. Not quite corrugation, but yeah, like kind of like some kind of structural on top of it. That'd be neat. And then let's darken this. Oops. Didn't actually change which part of the palette I was sampling from. I'm also going to darken this color quite a lot because it's very bright for like a darker shade. Yeah, let's increase the contrast of this row. You can probably see why I'd want to do palletize, given it makes it this easy to kind of like adjust like light and gradients and stuff and really dial them in exactly as you want them. I might actually do two different versions of concrete, one for kind of like lit by daylight and one lit by artificial light, just so we can have like a bit of a cold warm contrast. Okay, yeah, let's shade a bit more of this. A bit more of that. Oh, yeah, that's looking tasty. That's looking real tasty. So I want to do something with that. I feel like that final shade is a bit sudden. It's a bit extreme compared to the others. It might just be that I just need more shades. That looks a bit better. That looks more kind of like a natural sort of like, even diffusal of light. Let's extend the shine all the way to the end of here. And then a little bit of a shine on there, maybe just to kind of like show that it's kind of like you're going around the corner again. And maybe we can do some continuity between that and the other half of the same texture, just to kind of like really kind of make it look like it's a solid piece, even though it's not. Yes, that's up there. Which way around did I unwrap this? Is that the top or the bottom? I think, okay, I think that, yeah, so that end connects to that end. Okay. I think that's the center. Let's have a look. Yeah. Cool. Okay, we do have a bit of a drastic drop in brightness there, so I'm going to adjust that, see if I can make that part of the palette a bit smoother. That's looking real good. Okay, let's extend it all the way down, and we're going to want we're going to want it to be like fully shadowed by the time it gets to the bottom. So I think that's about there. Is that right? Nope. Let's go 2 more. Aha. Now we tackle the underside. So, yeah, despite the fact that it should probably be very dark light under there, I'm going to kind of feather the edge a bit by going for like a lighter grey along the edge of there. And then after that's done, I'm hoping to focus a bit more on this kind of railway and see if I can get it looking real good. Some of the shadows will come from this, so I might try and get the silhouette of this kind of like, you know, really figured out before I kind of go into that. But this kind of like light, this kind of, yeah, sort of dim, diffuse, kind of like night light, that's kind of what I'm going for. So where did I put the unwrap for those? Oh, there, right next to it. Okay. So let's go for roughly that brightness all the way along it. Oh, I still got symmetry on, turn it off. Bit more. Why does it go to a point? Oh, because I haven't selected the other half of it. Okay, yeah, it's wider than that. Okay, one more, and it fans out to 4 pixels wide. Okay. And it goes down to about there, doesn't it? Okay, so yeah, so like the idea is that sort of like there, it's going to kind of like mask the sort of transition between the side and the lower half, because they're going to be exactly the same color. This is one of the advantages of doing everything flat lit and doing all of your lighting and textures, is that you can make it look like there's more geometry there than there actually is. Let's be more careful than that though. Let's kind of fan it out like that. And by the end, we want it to be completely pitch black. How's that look? Oh, that's pretty tasty, isn't it? Oof. Oh, it is satisfying painting and, you know, digitally painting like this. It really is. I don't know if I'd call it a good technique just because it's so utterly obsolete, but it feels good when you get it right. Okay, that shouldn't get that bright, so let's drop it down a level. And yeah, actually, let's do something a bit more complex here, like say that. Let's think asymmetric, just to kind of help, yeah, break it up a bit. That's good. That looks very good. So yeah, we've got this thing here. We've had like this really dark color under here and some much lighter color here. So I might try and split the difference along the corner. So it's going to be kind of around where the knee is. So that's going to be there. Can we darken this a shade? Just a shade. Oh, that actually doesn't look very good. Maybe it looks good with that discontinuity. It's here, isn't it? Maybe we lighten this slightly instead. No, it doesn't look good. It looked better with the discontinuity. That's kind of weird. Fair enough, I guess. Fair enough. We'll keep it. And to be honest, it's kind of rare you can see both the side and the bottom from ground level anyway. Okay. All right. So what's next? I guess I'm going to replicate that all the way along. So again, same thing as we did last time. We're going to, what are we going to do? Snap the cursor to this. Origin 3D cursor, snap to vertices, and then we're going to do that. Nice and simple. And then we're going to do the same thing again. That's gone very wrong. This one needs rotating. So what was it again? It was. Oh, we'll sort that out in a second, actually. Aha. Oh, I'm liking that. Then we've got one more to put in, so let's do that now. Snap cursor selected. Oh, very nice. Okay, and we need one over here, so let's do the same thing again. Let's grab all of this. Is that right? That's right, yeah. Snap the cursor selected, grab the whole column, and rotate it. Was it 11.25? Is it 22.5? 22.5. Got it. Oh, that's tasty. That looks good. All right, just going to save that. And then I'm going to have another shot at doing this kind of foliage along the edge here. Now that I actually have a way to make it transparent, let's temporarily switch this over to RGB color, save. So what I was thinking about is, how would this actually be lit? Because of course you'd have like the old like leaf kind of like picking up a bit of color. But if you think about, say, like I'm just going to do a bit of a doodle over here. You think about, say, like the actual kind of like shape we're looking at here. I'm kind of like looking at sort of a lots of leaves, and it kind of like dangles down to a point, and it's like lots of leaves. But it's kind of got like a volume here, It's meant to kind of like pick up the light sort of here and have a bit of shadow kind of down here. So I need to take that into account, because this looks kind of flat. It's a big flat bundle of leaves, and that's just not how it works. So we're going to start this without doing any kind of like individual leaf detail. I'm going to do that later on. Instead, we're going to start out with like kind of like a blob on top, and then we're going to shade a bit more around it to try and give the impression of a mass of leaves before we start putting any kind of like noisier, smaller undulations on it. Hell yes. Let's extend this down a bit. Let's extend all of these down sideways a bit. Yeah, let's just have a bit more interesting shape here. Let's really kind of carve it. I'm thinking it should probably fill towards the edges, right? That would make sense. Okay, that looks kind of jank, but let's see if we can sort that out. Let's keep working at it. See if we can make it look less terrible. Don't do a huge amount of organic stuff, and this is a good opportunity to get better at it. I will probably end up redrawing this 2 or 3 times before it's right, and it probably won't even be on the same stream, just because, like, yeah, you kind of need like an opportunity to sort of take your eyes away from it. Think about what you've done and come back and apply what you've not necessarily learned but had time to think about. Okay, yeah, so I'm like focusing on having like, you know, sort of masses rather than individual leaves, kind of having like masses of vegetation. I think that instantly looks better. Like, it still doesn't look great, but that instantly looks a bit more, well, like hanging leaves, I guess. So let's just add a mid-tone in there. Just so we've got something a bit between the brightest and darkest. And once we've actually got the silhouette sorted out, we can start thinking about doing the reverse side of it, and also casting shadows on the underside, because, yeah, this obviously should be casting shadows on here, but the columns do. That kind of thing a light mapper can pick up, but it tends to be a bit tricky. So again, like, really hand painting your lighting allows you to really dial that in and make it look right. Or if not right, how you intended it to look. Quite often they're not quite the same thing. Some of the weird things about light and colour is that quite often what looks right is not actually what's right. Like, an overcast day is so hard to do in CG because, well, everything looks flat, and it looks wrong when things are flat in CG. Okay, that's instantly looking better, instantly. So let's adjust these colours a bit. Let's lighten that mid-tone slightly. And maybe slightly desaturate that and turn it more to the green side. That looks pretty good. That's actually starting to look better. So let's add a ton more shading now. I think I might have gone a bit overboard with the, you know, like the kind of roll to blue that kind of gives you that cooler kind of shaded tone. Let's turn it down a bit. And then we can kind of have it sort of roll out of the shadows. All right, okay, and this here shouldn't go to the full brightness yet because, you know, it's meant to be reflecting a shadow, so it should remain pretty dark around there. And then we're only going to start getting into that kind of like lighter tone, sort of more towards here. So maybe we'll put a bit of a shadow here. Yeah, let's give that a try. Okay, maybe we need to be a bit more gradual here as well. Maybe this should be more like this, you know, just starting to break into those lighter colors sort of gradually, kind of like in sort of like a breakup type thing. Yeah, that's starting to look so much better than it was before. Let's avoid these big pools of bright color as well. Let's make them a bit more sparkly, you know, just to kind of make it look like there are individual leaves catching the light. Let's put some down here as well. Maybe the odd just bright one like that. Does that look okay? Ah. Ah. Aha. Okay, that's looking a lot better. Wait, this texture's actually misaligned. I've just realised the top half of it actually doesn't quite line up. What's going on there? Is it because I moved it to the side slightly to account for something? Oh, it's because I widened it. Right? I widened the train track and it's now overlapping. Okay. So we can go two pixels taller on this, which is good. It means we can sort of like round off the top a bit and make it look like there's a kind of like a bit of shape at the top. Because it's going to be, all these leaves, these branches are going to be kind of like rolling over the top of this in kind of bunches. How's that look? Is that right? Yeah, that's about right. Okay, excellent. Okay. Let's just keep this pattern going. Maybe I actually have a tiny bit of the concrete peek through in places, you know, like say there. I can kind of like, I can kind of peek around the side. I can make it slightly darker at the edges. How's that look? Oh, that helps a lot. That makes it look way more kind of natural. Yeah, that looks good. Maybe we can do that here as well and go to the really dark shades of concrete. Hell yes. Okay, that's starting to look really good. Just need to extend this success, this victory, this wave of victory from the right to the left. Have it in for time. Okay, we're coming up on now. Fair enough. Then we can mirror it and use it to make the silhouette from the other side. And from there, we can then do like, because I wanted to do the thing where kind of like at the very edges, it was kind of highlighted from the other side. So it's almost kind of like the light is kind of, you know, going through the narrower, the thinner bunches of leaves at the edges. And then we can start drawing some more shadows along here. Oh, it's going to look so good. So excited. Where's Ice Sprite gone? There it is. Let's extend this gradient up into the very top. And then just extend this fake color all the way along there. And then let's put another little dot of concrete in there. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. It's looking pretty good. Maybe we can also just dot the odd little bit of concrete in, sort of like in around here like this. Will that look any good? Thinking it probably won't. Oh, no, it actually does. It actually makes it look a bit more like leaves. Okay. Nice. So if we put the odd sort of like, you know, dark dot inside just to kind of like break up some of these bigger shapes, maybe we can put the odd transparent dot as well, just to kind of like really kind of make it so you can see through to the other side. Yeah, let's kind of like break these kind of like big pools up a bit with some kind of like horizontal sort of shimmers. That will probably help it look a bit more like, you know, branches than a moss, I guess, is kind of what it looks like at the moment, because it's just, you know, like big sort of green blobs. Okay, this one here needs to change. That one's a bit too much of a big green blob. Cannot stand. It needs to be corrected. Okay, now the one next to it is also a bit too big, green and blobby. And let's just delete a few pixels here and there, just to kind of like give it a bit more sort of, you know, have an appearance of kind of like small individual leaves hanging down. Yeah. Okay, and let's break up this one a bit more. Yeah. Okay, and this one down here, I'm just going to shorten these a bit. They're a bit too long. Heck yeah. Okay, now let's save it without any palette. How's it look? That looks okay. I feel like it could, without the, you know, when it's transparent, it looks a bit weird. That's probably going to need a bit more adjustment. But I feel that silhouette is roughly right, which is the one thing that's going to be hard to change. So let's grab, how much of this are we grabbing? I don't know. That much. Okay, yeah, the whole thing. Oh, it's transparent, so I need to actually clear it before I paste onto it. And then we're going to delete the 3 nearest pixel edges. Actually, we need to move it one more. I'm going to mirror it. No, actually, let's flip the UVs. I think that makes way more sense. Okay, so then we've got these 4 rows of pixels. They need to go. And then we can extend this back out to here to fix the hole we just made in that texture. Have we fully extended that out? Oh no, we need to move those entirely. Okay, we'll do that in a bit. So now we're going to need an alternate palette for these that's, you know, very different. And to also draw some shadows on this that roughly approximate where that falls. So yeah, the reason I want to flip the UVs rather than the texture is that I'm pretty sure, let me just fact check this. If I do that, do those line up? They do, meaning that I just literally imitate this shape as a shadow on this, and it should look about right. So I'm going to do a thing where it kind of like fans out very slightly as well. So roughly, oh, this is very wrong. Oh, we'll fix it. We'll fix it. Roughly like that? Roughly? Very roughly. But vaguely. Not looking right yet. This will probably need a bit of back and forth before it looks right. Much like the vegetation itself. Very rare you get something right first time. That's why I was kind of like, woo, tasty with the arches holding up the bridge, and it just looked, you know, right almost immediately. Okay, let's make an alternate version of this down here. And this time we're actually going to make, even though it should be in shadow, this M1's actually going to be much brighter. And then it's going to go into a... No, actually, no, I'm not going to make an alternate version of it. I am instead going to repixel it. So let's do all of the outlines, and then we can kind of like see how this looks. It probably isn't going to look great. We can edit it later. Especially the whole silhouette, we want to be this kind of like, you know, lighter green. It's like lighter sort of yellowy green. And then we're basically just going to much more darkly shade it inside of that silhouette. So you're almost getting like the effect of the light shining through the thinner leaves at the edges, and then only a small amount working its way through the thicker leaves in the center. Oops, I forgot I didn't have the line tool enabled. Oh yeah, I should probably call out the well, shout out. Call out makes it sound like it's negative. The developers of Blender and Aseprite, who when I talked to them about the palette bug, were actually really helpful and very talkative, very refreshing. So I've using an Aseprite feature here where I'm locking the alpha. So I've basically gone up here and I've set it to lock alpha mode. And that means that I can't actually draw on anything transparent because the alpha channel is completely locked. It's really handy for when you're sort of like, recoloring something like this and you're just doing like it means you can be really fast. You don't really have to you don't have to make sure that every pixel's right because it won't change the silhouette. So yeah, that looks kind of pants at the moment because I haven't gone through and like figured out the entire sort of like color sort of scheme for this part. But you can probably see what I'm going for. Where kind of like the outline of it is kind of like glowing against the with the light kind of like pouring through it, drilling through it from the reverse side. Subsurface scattering, as the kids like to say. Well, maybe. Would that be SSS? I have no idea. Subsurface scattering, like for like skin shaders and stuff, is one of those things that I very rarely turn on because this is going to be a hot take. I cannot tell when subsurface scattering is on or off. It looks the same to me. It's like a very slight, subtle red tint, and I'm like, is that it? Is that really worth like all the extra fill rate? I'm not so sure it is. One of those effects I'm pretty sure you could remove from a game entirely and no one would even notice. I can say this because I know no one's watching, and the the shader engineers, the absolute geniuses who make that kind of thing work. I know I'm not annoying them right now because no one's actually listening. Okay. Let's go for a slightly less... Is lurid a good word? I feel like lurid is a good word for this. A slightly less lurid green for when we're close to the concrete. Is that looking better? Okay, that's starting to look better, isn't it? Let's there's a big sort of chunk of green kind of there. Where is that? There it is. Let's reduce that a bit. And in fact, when we get really close to the edge like that, it probably shouldn't have any highlighting at all. Okay, that doesn't look great, but honestly, that looks okay. How does it look when it's transparent? Without like a nice, skybox behind it? Yeah, kind of weird. And you can kind of see it again. I think it looks kind of good against the concrete. So that doesn't look terrible. It doesn't look great, but it doesn't look terrible. Probably do a bit more kind of, filling along here, darkening all this a bit, just to make it so that it actually goes dark when it reaches the top. Kind of really fill in the back of these just so that really kind of gets dark where the leaves should be thickest. Okay, that's looking good. Let's go into Pixel Perfect mode. Pixel Perfect mode is actually a really nice mode where kind of like, let me demonstrate what it does. Pixel Perfect off, right? So you've got these nasty kind of square corners, like these double thick sections. Pixel Perfect on, you get a nice single pixel thick line all the way along. It's very nice. Very tasty. Okay, we've got some bits here that are still a bit too bright. Yeah. Okay, that bit there, there's going to be a bit that's kind of, it's that, isn't it? Yeah, let's cut that down a bit. And then we've got, actually that brightest colour there, I'm going to get rid of that. And then there's a slight spike there of too much brightness, so have a look. And there's this bit here which is weirdly flat. Let's break that up a little bit. And then this here is also too bright. It should not be that bright straight away. It should kind of build up towards the edge like that. How's that look? Okay, let's put the transparency back on. Let's see how it looks. Hopefully the Blender and Ace Break guys can get that sorted out. Ooh, I might remove that transparent pixel. That looks kind of weird. It doesn't actually have to be one-to-one continuous because you can't actually see both sides of it at once. It's just that if it was completely different, it'd be very obvious. Also, I need way more shadow along the back of this. Yeah, let's add way more shadow in here. Ideally, not more than a couple of pixels of like, you know, as dark as this is going to go. You really want that darkest color to be really dark because it's a really strong, powerful accent color. All right. It's all starting to come together slightly. How long have we been streaming? We've been streaming for an hour. Okay, let's continue working on the underside of this. I really want to get this. I want to see if I can get the underside of this railway looking kind of like finished by the time we finish tonight. So I'm going to make these columns cast a much bigger shadow. Kind of more like that. Right? And then we're going to make this second shade kind of like, you know, this kind of mid-tone a bit bigger. It's going to be a wider band as it gets to the top because, you know, it's getting the shadow's getting blurrier. How's that look? This will look a bit weird because the shadow's only going to be on one side of the column. We should be getting a rough idea of how it's looking. Oh yeah, that's more like it. In fact, I might make it so it kind of like runs over the top of the over the kind of like seam line. I'm intentionally leaving in, by the way. I intentionally want that hard edge to be there because it's meant to look almost kind of like a leaf, you know. That's why it has like the stripes on it. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Hopefully, I'm not going to end up with a massive discontinuity between the floor and the ceiling. We'll see. Well, actually, no, you won't because the light's going to be kind of yeah. These light sources are going to be responsible for this. It's actually going to be a very different kind of color of light. I'm going to use a second row of palette, I think. Do I just copy this and flip it just so that I can get a rough idea of how it's going to look straight away? The answer is yes, because I've just done it. Yeah. Oh, spicy. Okay, so next up, I'm going to start kind of like adding sort of like a slight kind of curve inwards like that. Let's widen that shadow actually. Because I want there to be a bit more sort of drama to the shadow. Because at the moment it's kind of very flat. I want it to be a bit more dramatic. I want it to kind of like extend outwards a tiny bit. Yeah. And then on this side, I'm going to use a lighter tone to represent the kind of very kind of much. So at this point, it's facing away from the light source. So it's going to be a bit of a squished kind of highlight. We're going to have one there. Maybe I should soften this edge a bit, because it wouldn't actually be, if it was real, it wouldn't actually be like that hard. It would actually have like a bit of taper to it. Oh, there's actually a shade in between I could be using. There we go. So a bit of like, kind of like a bit of a bowing as well. So like the panels are kind of like slightly wider between the separating lines. Yeah, that's looking good. I'm going to shuffle. I think that's an airport, isn't it? I'm going to shuffle all these across by a pixel, just so that it kind of, the gradient lines up with the light source. One more. Yeah, I think isn't like Schiphol? I think it's pronounced a bit more interestingly than that. I think that's an airport in the Netherlands. Okay, next up. Let's sort out the fact that this is, we're using this kind of like hot pink kind of placeholder color. That's making it really hard to judge whether our color choices are kind of correct. Oh yeah, that's looking good. I might shade this a bit more, just so it's kind of, because like I was originally gonna make this kind of like second pool of light here is meant to be kind of like the reflection of one of these light sources, but it looks kind of silly. It looks like the the sunlight is the same brightness as like a light that's mostly shining down that's like several meters away, which is wrong. That just wouldn't work like that. Okay, right there. Oh yeah. And this down here needs to arc up like that. It's looking more like it. Not quite like it, but it's looking more like it. Okay. Hey, this is starting to look vaguely coherent. That's what we like to see. So I am going to do kind of like a sort of like a negative space thing, I guess, there with, oops, hang on, I misaligned it. Yeah. Kind of like the outline of the the outline of the continuous slice. It's almost kind of like you're looking at the highlights along the edge of the panel gap. Yeah. Okay, I was just having a bit of a think there about what I was going to do next. Strategizing, computing. Aha. How's that look? Well, one of them kind of breaks off mid-stride, but we'll fix that. Yeah, I'm not happy with how flat the bottom of this has ended up. I need to do a bit of a retouch on that. Again, it might involve more shades. Okay. Going on next. Where are we going with this next? I wonder what's going on with this. Why have some of these kind of gone a bit wrong? Yeah, what's this? What's the shadow all about? Have I accidentally drawn over this at some point? I might have done. Oops. Well, thanks to the magic of source control, we can undo that. Actually, I think you can open two copies of the same image. Yeah, you can. If I edit one of these, does the other one update to match? Yes, it does. Okay, I think I can. Yeah, hang on. I can actually open multiple copies of it, right? Yeah. So we have two separate copies of this open. So if I, right. Look away from the terrible code for a second. Let's undo. Let's undo all changes to that texture. We've got them in memory, so it should be fine. And a recent base. Okay, yes, yeah, so now we've still got a copy of this. We can grab this, copy and paste it into our updated version of it. And oh, that's gone a bit weird. Color mode, RGB. No, actually, let's not do RGB. What color do they have these here? That. And what's the dark one? Just close that. The dark one is that color. All kinds of hackery going on right now. Why did I put that into RGB mode, unpalletized mode before I before I started changing colors? Am I actually stupid? Light color. I hope Aseprite doesn't crash at any point, because if it did, I'd lose all my work. But it's pretty stable. It's pretty stable. Generally don't have to worry about that. Aha! Wait. Oh. Well, that wasn't a success. I'll recover it manually. I wonder how that happened. So let's have a look at this. So what's actually wrong with this? So we have this kind of I've got this one here which has a slight gradient around there, and that one's got some corruption there. So we can probably just copy that bit across from another version of it. Kind of staring into these pixel tea leaves and trying to figure out where I've messed up here. So let's try that. Does that line up with that? Yep, that's good. That's good. Next up, we need to fix this one, which is there. And it's kind of towards the center, which should be the same on all of them, given that the differences are at the edges. So I should be able to do that. Grab that, turn it upside down. I wonder if I did this using the symmetry tool. Yeah, this sort of like damage I've done to it, because I've managed that a few times. I've managed to, leave the symmetry tool on, and then, for example, if I left the symmetry tool on there, and then, I was painting here, and it painted over there. Right, yeah. Yeah, I've done that a few times. It'd be nice if there was maybe like a warning when the symmetry tool was drawing off screen. Yeah, that might resolve that, but also paying some attention on my behalf would have prevented it too. Okay, let's fix that gap. There we go. And let's fix this remaining kind of broken piece. So unfortunately, I don't have anywhere else I can really copy that from. So I'm just going to have to make it up. I can probably copy that half and then flip it and put it there. And then probably just stretch that out. That looks about right, doesn't it? It's close enough. That's one of the nice things about pixel art. It's once you've got the pattern down, once you've figured out what the palette is, the actual placing of pixels is fast. And if you screw something up, you can easily go back and correct it later. Let's do the same highlighting trick we did on the other side. Yeah, that makes the edge stick out a bit more. I might even actually. Slightly brighten the bottom of the bottom of this line, just to make it look like it's, like really catching some light in there. Yeah, that kind of like it's reduced the contrast, but not in the way that's necessarily bad. Let's do that. Do that. Yeah. Liking that. Next up, let's just make this a bit less angular, because I kind of like freehanded this. Let's just add a bit of noise along here because it is meant to be the shadows of leaves. They should be a bit sparkly, a bit kind of here. The odd loose pixel here and there. It shouldn't be quite as neat and tight as it was. Ah, yeah. Okay, let's try that without the... Let's fix the transparency and see how that looks. Oh, I'm liking that. Can I change the viewport background? I think I can in one of these. Oh, actually, I think it's actually in the Blender preferences. I don't think it's part of the scene. Themes, here it is. Oh, we can actually go for different themes. No, okay. Oh, whoa, whoa, my eyes, whoa. 3D viewports. Oh, you guys can't actually see what I'm playing with. Trust me. I have the settings menu open and I'm seeing if I can change the viewport color. What I could do instead, actually, I could just, you know, put something else there. Just put like a big wall of geometry there just so we can get an idea of how it looks with a bit of contrast. My only thing here is that because this grey colour that they've got as the background is very kind of flat and neutral, and the background's actually going to be relatively dark, it's actually not a great representation of how it'll look. Oh yeah, I like that. I like how that looks. Okay, next up I want to do something with this. Maybe have like a very slight shine on it. Yeah, maybe just the very darkest shade. Kind of like something like that. Nah, I don't like that. I'm going to keep that dark. Also, this is going to change a bit once we actually do a bit more with the light, because also the light's going to be casting a shadow of itself sort of here, but then it's going to have a bit more kind of like a light pool around it, but from a different palette. Okay, all right. What else? What else should I focus on? Let's texture that light. It's been, I unwrapped it and it's been sat there going, when's he going to texture me? I think he's forgotten. We've got a nice little gap right here for it. Oh, it's actually very slightly too big to fit in the gap. Yeah, the engine I plan on putting this in uses integers, so you know, it's not going to have any kind of like UV bleed along the edges. But I also want to put this in VRChat, and VRChat does use floating points. That would be a problem for that. Or I might clear that. I might fix that gap. That's a bit weird. Okay, so I might use the palette I used for this up here. This kind of like slightly greeny sort of metal color. I think that'll go well in there. Let's put this back into palletized mode just so I don't, because one of the things you can do is if you start editing these colors in non-palletized mode, it only affects like new painting with it. It won't actually affect anything on here. And I've done that before multiple times. I've completely failed to notice that I'm, you know, like editing colors that have no effect. I've still got this in lock alpha, haven't I? Yes, I have. So I turn that off and now I can paint again. And yeah, so we now have kind of like the vines reaching the center. Actually, I didn't really even think about this, but having it kind of like, yeah, it's almost like the columns casting a shadow on the like narrower leaves on the thinner bunches of leaves at the edge. That was a complete accident. It actually looks pretty good. The happiest of accidents. Okay, I keep stalling. Let's do the light source. I might need some new palette actually for the actual like emissive surface. So let's do the top half first. So that runs from kind of like there, which is sort of like there. Hey, that was a pretty good guess, wasn't it? Again, I could be exporting UV islands from Blender, but that's actually a multi-step process that takes a long time. And I found it not so great for pixel art because it's anti-aliased and you just tend to end up with kind of like pixel mush. I think you can turn off anti-aliasing, but again, it's like optimized for like floating point models. And you tend to end up with kind of like bits sticking in and out of the actual, pixels sticking in and out of the actual geometry. I've got to say, modern tools are so good. All this stuff would have taken me like days to do on actual contemporary 3D art tools. And the fact that I can just make a massive texture and not even think about it and do my layout later on is just so good. Okay, so I'm going to want some new palette here. So what color am I going to go for? I'm actually thinking of going for like more like warm blue for kind of like the sky because it's meant to be sort of dusk. And then that means that I should have my artificial lights be more of a warm. So let's go all the way up there. Let's go very slightly saturated and let's go kind of like sort of a creamy yellow. And then fill in all of these with a creamy yellow. And then darken it quite a bit towards the edge. Not going to go anywhere near actual darkness with this because it's meant to be like a light source. And I'm thinking I'm going to keep the brightness on these like relatively flat. And I'm going to instead vary kind of like the, I'm going to go like a sort of more like a reddish toned towards this end, which should give it a bit more of a kind of like a, look like a, I've gone blank. What's the name of the very orange lights? They're not halogen lights, are they? Sodium lamps. Yeah, I want it to kind of have like a sodium lamp kind of feel. Oops. Okay. Let's put another dot in the middle of the brightest, and let's work our way out from the center, getting darker as we go. One of the things about doing pixel art sort of concentric rings like this is that you end up with kind of like really like that's obviously not a circle, that's becoming more like a diamond. And the only real alternative is to kind of do that, at which point you sort of have to double up pixels. There isn't really a perfect way of drawing circles. Unsurprisingly, there isn't really a perfect way of drawing circles using squares. I just realized what I was about to say. That's come out more pink than I was really after. So let's shift the hue to the side a bit and see if we can get it more orange. Maybe yeah, saturate it more. Sorry, earlier, not more early, earlier. And this has gone a bit too pink, so that way. Ah, yeah, that's what we're after. That doesn't look great. I'm gonna maybe like distort the circle intentionally to kind of correct for the sort of natural distortion of the geometry. So make it like a real diamond, actually, like a real diamond shape. Because the kind of like the polygons are actually kind of bending it back into a circle. So I could fix my unwrap, or I could just correct it in the texture. Now I'm not too sure about this pixel reaching the edge. That looks a bit weird, so I might get rid of that and see how that looks. Not 100% on that either, but that looks better than the alternative, I guess. That will do for that, I think. We'll come back to that later on when I've got a bit more of an idea of how to fix that. So let's add a bit of colour on the outside. Does that kind of look? Should that be the way around? I think it should. Yeah. Now, obviously the top half of it is kind of faced away from this light source. It won't be completely black because there's going to be like plenty of light bouncing around the scene. but we're going to want it to be quite dark there. And it's going to get lighter and then very slightly darker again as it reaches the top. Where did I unwrap that? Oh, immediately above it. Fair enough. And this, I made the sides 2 pixels across, and we have 3 sides, that's 6 pixels. And I don't remember which end was the top and which end was the bottom, so let's find out. Huh? Oh, I just didn't use the whole length of it. Fair enough. Okay, that's the top part. That's the part that should go dark, but not completely dark. And we want that nice gradient going backward to meet it. Damn it, I miscounted. Okay, and then there should be like this exact shape down here, but with a hole in the middle of it. And then we can sort of do the same thing again. Kind of have the sort of gradient kind of pulling into the middle. We're going to want to get much darker than that. Oh, there you go. The next level is actually a lot darker. That's actually, I might correct that color. That's a bit too dark. Yeah. Ah. Is that actually slightly still misaligned? I think it is actually slightly still misaligned. Ah. Really don't want to make the railway track any wider. Might have to though. Oh, I should probably also like add a bit of like a light gradient to that. So like this is like splashing a bit of light onto that. Have to think about that. Also, I'm just going to make a, probably one of the last things I'm going to do tonight is just to add a bit of a shadow underneath this. So it's almost kind of like the light is casting shadow on the ceiling above. So it's here, right? Yep. And it's actually just behind the intersection. So it's kind of here. Yep. Okie doke. And let's get our darkest color. And then let's just circle it out a bit. Yeah, that looked pretty good. Oh, actually, that's kind of a bit weird. What? Oh, I've got the wrong color. Right. I was coloring this in using the metal rather than the concrete. Wait, why did I make the underside of this out of concrete? That's actually kind of a weird material to use. Oh well. Let's just undo all of that. Undo all of that because that's gone very, 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 very wrong. How's that look? It's casting a bit of a shadow. Bit of a shadow. Needs to be bigger though. I wonder what my APM is while I'm doing this. Let's draw that shadow in just a little bit more. How's that look? That shadow does extend just a little bit too far. It does kind of like strain credularity a little bit. Okay. Yeah, this is going to need a bit of a gentle adjustment, I think. I think this is probably going to be it for tonight, but like that's definitely some progress. Okay, well, yep, I'm going to stop it there. Thank you very much for watching. I still have no idea what I'm really doing with these 3D modeling texturing streams, but we are progressing towards a finished scene, I guess. What I've got kind of next to do tomorrow is I need to finish this kind of lighting off because it's not quite right yet. I need to finish this off down here. I need to build this sort of fencing. This won't be tomorrow night. I think it'll be the night after. If not Friday. It might end up being Friday. Oh wait, I'll just fix this before I finish. Given I've basically broken this. Misaligned. Oops, nope. Over here. Yeah. Got a lot of the surfaces yet to texture. It's starting to come together. I've also got this kind of like stairway that it's probably easy to see in like untextured mode. The stairwell going down here, that's going to need unique textures because it's going to be in shade and things like that. I haven't quite decided how I'm going to texture these buildings over here yet, because obviously if I leave this absolutely massive flat surface, that's going to be a gigantic texture. Not quite sure I'm going to do that. And also this kind of like grassy verge. Not quite sure about that yet. We'll figure it out. We'll do it wrong and then we'll do it right. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you some other time. Probably tomorrow at 7 PM for Code Veronica X, part 10. And if not then, probably Friday for more of this.